Now bring in my guest, Mustafa Caner, as an assistant professor of Iran Studies at Sakarya University's Middle East Institute. Thank you once again for being with us on the program. I first want to get your thoughts on these negotiations that are set to take place this weekend. How big of a make it or break it moment are we going to witness over the next 48 hours? And what are some of the potential outcomes that we can see from these talks?
I think it will be very much decisive in determining the course of war. I mean, whether it will bring parties somewhere or it will collapse totally. So I think there are many issues to be, taken into consideration here, like the very different demands for each side, which is really difficult to, bridge this gap, because both sides have claimed that their proposals have been accepted by the other, but at the same time, both sides' proposals are very different from each other, like Iran's 10 points demand list and the US 15 points demands list. So these differences actually make us think that there are a lot of work to do there, and there are a lot of obstacles, challenges, like what is going to happen on Lebanon. Will it be included, the talks? Iran is insisting that Lebanon should be part of the deal. Israel and the US are insisting that Lebanon should be left outside. It's not part of the deal. So there are many challenges. And also there are differences between J.D. Vance, even among the American team, between J.D. Vance and Kushner and Vitkov. Mm-hmm. So we know that Vance has been distant from this war campaign. He put a distance between himself and warmonger circles. Right. And when it was asked to Donald Trump, he had said that Vance is not as enthusiastic as us about this war. He said that he has a philosophical stance, something like that. Right. But we know that from the very beginning, Vance has been critical. So they are sending Vance with Kushner and Vitkov, like Kushner and Vitkov are going to keep an eye on him. Mm-hmm. And if these talks collapse, then they will blame this on J.D. Vance, and they would include him in their calculations, and J.D. Vance wouldn't, keep himself out of this war.
Right. Very interesting points. You mentioned Lebanon, though, which is something that I want to focus on, because we heard from Reza say that Iranian officials have put Lebanon as a precondition to these negotiations. Do you think the issue of Lebanon will lead to the collapse of these negotiations before they could even begin?
If the parties insist on their original positions, I think it will have a potential to collapse all these talks. But if the U.S.-Israeli side, if they are, if they are able to get some concessions from Iran on other topics like the Strait of Hormuz, maybe they will include Lebanon as part of the deal. So, but if they insist on their position, like Lebanon shouldn't be included or excluded, I think it will go nowhere. But if Iran is ready to, concede on other topics, in return Lebanon to be included in the peace process, then maybe we will see some developments.
How much do you think Trump is, and in the meantime, we are looking at live pictures out of Joint Base Andrews of J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States, who is preparing to make his way along with his delegation to Islamabad, to Pakistan's capital, for those very crucial negotiations that is expected to take place over the next 48 hours. We have very little details on how these negotiations are going to unfold on site. As our correspondent Ilyas Avcı mentioned to us earlier, very little information has been given to the press on the format of the negotiations and the details of what is set to be discussed. Let's listen into J.D. Vance.
The United States said if the Iranians are willing to negotiate in good faith, we're certainly willing to extend the open hand. If they're going to try to play us, then they're going to find that the negotiating team is not that receptive. So we're going to try to have a positive negotiation. The president has gave us some pretty clear guidelines, and we're going to see. So I hope you guys have a safe flight. We'll certainly take some questions later on, but for now, let's get on the plane and hit the road. Thank you all.
All right, we were listening to the U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance speaking there live at Joint Base Andrews. He is currently embarking on his airplane that will be taking him to the Pakistani capital, Islamabad, where they are going to have negotiations with officials from Iran. Again, we don't know much about how these negotiations are going to unfold, the format of it, whether or not it's going to be direct between Iranian and U.S. officials. Very vague information for the time being. But I was about to ask you about how much the U.S. President, Donald Trump, is willing to risk for Israel when it comes to the issue of Lebanon, because we know that Israel is eager to continue its war with Hezbollah.
I think the answer is pretty obvious, because when we look at the timeline, Donald Trump, in the first place, he had agreed that the Lebanon would be included. So Lebanon was part of the deal. And then we know that Netanyahu exerted some pressure on Donald Trump, and he changed his tone, and he made his position more in line with Israel's position. So I think Israel has a tremendous effect on Donald Trump's decision-making process. So Israel will, try to, actually has been trying to disrupt these diplomatic efforts. So because for Israel, the better option is war resuming, and Israel is continue to, attack Iran, destroy its infrastructure. At the same time, Israel prefers to bomb Lebanon at the same time because of this, immediate geography, southern Lebanon. So,
if Israel is given the green light to continue its war with Hezbollah, do you think that Lebanon, and real quick for me if you can, just to understand the fragility of the situation there, will the south of Lebanon turn into the next Gaza?
I think Israel's plan is pretty much turning the southern Lebanon into Gaza. So I think they will, try to continue as much as they can. I believe that they'll try to invade Lebanon, up to Beirut. So that's their, game plan. They want southern Lebanon turn into Gaza. They want disarm Hezbollah, and by using Lebanese government, president and prime minister, through U.S., they are putting this pressure onto the government of Lebanon to disarm Hezbollah. So actually, twofold strategy.
Right.
Inflicting, some dissonance into Lebanon, internal, balances, into Lebanon's internal balances. At the same time, militarily engaging and bombing Lebanon.
Right.
It's Israel's strategy, I think.
I mean, 100 strikes in the time span of 10 minutes, absolutely devastating. Professor Mustafa Janar, thank you so much for being with us here
Thank you for
on the
having me.
NewsHour. I appreciate it. Well, Iran's foreign